Welcome back to the 4 steps. Now, before we jump in, I want to acknowledge your progress. You've gone through the first 3 and you're getting ready to go into the 4th and final step of this process, and you have done some amazing work. Just putting the time in and being exposed to this is going to make significant changes, and I'm really proud of you for doing that. So acknowledge yourself for sticking through this and trying to learn something, because that's just phenomenal. Now, we are at a point where you have almost everything you need in order to make significant life changes to get your best and highest version of life that you've expected. So actually, before we jump into this step, let's do a quick review. First, we talked about getting your mindset right, and we have the prescription on how to do that. I'm just going to walk through the steps real quick. Number 1, believe in the universe and believe that it's in your favor. Number 2, know that if you were tall enough and could see far enough, you would understand everything about it all. Number 3, when you are feeling off, you're just too zoomed in. So step 4 is back up and gain some perspective. Step 5 is just let go of the idea that is causing that bad feeling. Just let go of the idea. And then 6, decide that there is something that exists that is a positive reason for what you're experiencing. And step 7 is look for what that might be. Seek a reason or a version of that positive thought and then write it down. Okay. Then step 2, we talked about doing a reality check. So recognizing where you are is the first step towards any destination. We also talked about experience versus story, and how the stories you tell yourself about the experiences you have can and do color just how you see the world. This distinction will help you check your reality. Number 3, once you have a grasp on your reality, only then should you get to work on setting your goal. So get grounded where you are. Don't hold back. Definitely you can think and dream big, that's for sure. But have a single point of focus. Make sure it's one aim to which you can apply all your powers to achieve. Remaining positive in your words and your mindset will help ensure that the power you draw into this will be used in your favor. And then using the drilling down so that you can make sure you're asking for what you really want. Drill down your thoughts and ideas to make sure it's really focused in the direction and path plan that you wish. So with all of that in mind, now we can get on to the work of the work. Now, as we start this discussion, I want you to hold your highest vision in your mind, right? So just get as clear as you possibly can. And if you've done the work in the first 3 steps, which I know you have, you should be in a pretty good place. So take a moment, get centered, and find that highest vision that you want to hold on to in your mind. So in a moment, we're going to go through the process, which involves asking yourself some particular questions. And it's important that you're using smart and effective, empowering questions. I'm going to explain those. So these are questions that are phrased in such a way that will deliver back an answer that is useful and will allow you to move forward in the direction you want. So it's true that our mind has access to unlimited information, and because it does, it will deliver exactly what you're asking for. So the key is to make sure you're asking the right types of questions. As an example of one we don't want to ask, like, why does bad stuff always happen to me? Because your mind will tell you and reinforce exactly why that happens, which will create a negative cycle about bad things happening, why they happen, and you keep asking and you keep getting all this proof. So instead, I want you to ask an empowering question. So I want you to, something along the lines of this, like we can change the circumstances just by changing the wording. It will deliver back the results you ask. So when you ask something like, what can I do to change these circumstances? Or what can I do to change this situation? Or how can I avoid this in the future? You're going to get ideas, notions, and thoughts that are directly related to that question. And that's much more powerful than why does bad crap keep happening to me? So one thing I found, there's a pretty clear distinction here. Some people have a grasp on this idea. Usually they have some version of it as they grew up, or it was implanted in them from a teacher or something. But some people have almost no clue about the power behind the words they use. And they need some pretty significant help on how to do this. So I'm just going to plant it here that if you need help on this, reach out. And I'm happy to show you the power behind using empowering questions. But for now, let's just get to the breakthrough work. Okay, I'm going to explain the process, then I'll give you an example. So I want you to start by grabbing a sheet of paper, and at the top of that paper, write down your crystal clear goal that you have in mind. I asked you about that a minute ago, so if you don't have it, get it now. Pause the thing, get a piece of paper, write down your crystal clear goal. Okay, right underneath that, I want you to think, what is the state of reality right before that becomes true? So you can ask yourself, what needs to happen, or what do I need for this to come true? What needs to be in place? And you just have to think about, in order to achieve that goal, what happens right before it? And then you're basically going to do this at each step. You're just going to write down the first thought and make any adjustments that you need to, and then you repeat it. Okay, so once I have that idea, then I'm going to go, what needs to be true for that to be in existence? And what needs to be in place for that to be true? And then go backwards each step down the page until you get to some point where you go, well, I'm kind of right there right now. Gee, I could do this. I can take these steps to get there. Then you'll know exactly what your next step will be and the path towards achieving that goal that you have. Now, this sounds kind of simple, but the truth is we go backwards to make sure we're working towards the goal we have chosen. Now, it's likely you may change paths along the way, and very often people hit a part of their path and it takes an unexpected turn, and that's okay. If and when that happens, it's okay to redirect your energy and choose a different goal. But here's the key. Just make sure that you're doing it with absolute clarity and not just because one of the steps got hard. Because, and I want you to write this down on the side of your paper, maybe even at the top, there are parts of your journey that will be hard. Now, not all of it will be hard, but it will take work or definitely action on your part, right? Like, make sure that if you change or you shift, you do that because you want to go in a different direction, not just because work got involved. Okay? Now, there's other parts of this when you hit something that might have a different aspect to it towards the same goal, but a different kind of its own kind of element or particle. We're going to talk about chunking, and I'll go through that here when we go through the example. So actually, let's talk about that. Let's do an example right here, right now. So at the top of the page, and we kind of do this in a pyramid, you put your highest and most clearest aim. It should be a very concise, almost a small statement of what you really want. And in this example, let's talk about owning my own home. Like I want to own my own home. It's an example a lot of people can get behind. So what needs to happen for me to own my own home? Well, a couple of things. Like I've got to have the credit. I'm going to get a loan, so I'm going to get a loan, so I need to have credit. So I got to have credit's got to be solid. That's going to be what happens. Down payment. I got to have some cash to put down, right? We have to learn about if you have to learn about housing, then that's something that has to happen. And you also have to know what your ideal house is. If you aren't crystal clear on exactly what house, then any house will do, and you're going to get what you ask for. So in this case, what needs to happen right before these things? So we're going to kind of chunk these out. So in order to have credit, I've got to make sure I'm paying my bills. I got to make sure I'm applying for credit, using it wisely. In order for me to have a down payment, I got to make sure that I'm not spending my money on frivolous stuff. I'm actually saving appropriately, and I'm doing all the things right with my bills, both for credit as well as that. My ideal house, I have to know what I want. How many people am I going to put in there? So at each one of these steps, every time I hit one of these chunks, I can create its own little path and reverse engineer. Well, what needs to happen for that to come true? Well, for my credit, I got to apply for a credit card. Once I get it, I got to make sure I make payments. Down payment, I got to have income. I got to spend it wisely. What happens before that? I got to know what my budget is. What happens before that? I got to know what my needs are. Do you see how just working backwards can get you right to that step of where you are so you can take those steps forward? It's pretty straightforward that once you follow those first 3 steps, creating this reverse engineered plan is quite simple. I am going to tell you a little bit about even though we believe the universe is good and we're not tall enough and can't see far enough to understand it all, we are going to face challenges. Now, I'm not talking about when things get hard. When things get hard, buckle down, work through it. But if you get to a challenge where you absolutely have to change course, just think about it like this. Like there's a path and a path, one with a P capital and one with a lowercase p. You can call it plan with a capital P or plan with a lowercase p, but you're working on something towards what you want. Sometimes the universe has a different plan or path for you. And when it becomes obvious because your energy and everything just isn't aligned with it, that's when the capital P plan takes over and you have to shift. Not just when it gets hard, again, but when things are clearly not going the way you really feel in tune with, that's when I want you to shift. Okay, so once you've gone through your exercise of writing your goal at the top, reverse engineering what has to be true right before that, what do I need to make that happen? Okay, go down a step, what needs to be true, what do I need to do to make that happen right before that? If you do that with clear and concise intentions, you will create your blueprint and your roadmap towards the successful goal that you want. It's pretty straightforward, And it sounds simple, but it's so powerful, especially when you write it down. Okay, I'm going to actually talk to you about something, especially in regards to when things get hard or if you have to change, right? Like this idea of failure is something that's kind of important to deal with. And it's just something that I learned something about this in high school, and I'm going to share it with you now. But I never realized how important it was until years later when I realized some of the science behind it and just how powerful it's been in my life. So back in high school, I'm in speech and debate class. I took it just because I thought it would be an easy English credit. I actually learned more there than pretty much any other high school class. But one of the lessons was our teacher taught us this set of phrases about failure. And it was from Tom Hopkins. I guess he was a motivational speaker back in the day. But it was this phrase that says, I never see failure as failure, but only as, and then there's a few different languages that come after it. So I'm just going to read them to you here and see if they resonate with you. I never see failure as failure, but only as a learning experience. I never see failure as failure, but only as the negative feedback I need to change course in my direction. I never see failure as failure, but only as opportunity to develop my sense of humor. I never see failure as failure, but only as an opportunity to practice my techniques and perfect my performance. And I never see failure as failure, but only as the game I must play to win. Having been armed with these since I was like 16 years old, I've never failed in my life. Have I made mistakes? Oh, absolutely. But even now, adult learning theory is teaching us that we learn most when we make mistakes. Nobody learns when they get the answers right. We learn when we make a mistake and correct our course. So don't be afraid of failure. Jump in, dive in, go head first into your goals. Now that you have a roadmap on how to do it, it should be pretty straightforward. There's one more little bonus that I want to leave you with that has been really helpful to me. And this is just kind of a tip, trick. I'm going to call it the ritual to stay on track, right? So everybody should be doing a few things every single day, regardless of whether you're on vacation, if you're sick, if you're staying at home, doesn't matter. A few things you should do every day. Now, what those things are, that's up to you. I'm going to tell you the few things that I do that help me make sure that I do regardless of what's going on in my world. So number one, I set aside some thinking time. I make sure that I have time to just sit and think. Now, this is not like a meditation, so don't think that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying sit and think, whether I've got issues that are, complications that have come up and issues I have to resolve, or if it's a problem I want to kind of spend some time on, or if I'm just having a good day and I want to revel in it. If I just spend some time thinking, then I can really clear out some of my mental clutter. And that's just a really critical thing I do every day regardless. Now, I do meditate every day as well, and I highly recommend it. There is untold benefits to it, and there's so much scientific evidence as well. It's hard to refute. I personally do TM, the Transcendental Meditation. I've tried a whole bunch of them. That one just resonated with me. That one is so easy for me to do compared to the others. Some of them can be tricky, but find one that works for you. I highly recommend it. And then journaling or documenting things, especially when you're asking these questions and you find some evidence, like you go, oh, like that actually is a really good answer to the question of what can I do to make things better in my life? Write them down. I cannot emphasize enough how things become magical when you put pen to paper. So some type of writing, whether it's pencil to paper or typing it out, I highly recommend pencil to paper type thing, but whatever works for you. And then learn to ask great questions everywhere. This is just something I've done forever. Like, this is one of the rituals I do. Whenever I hear a question asked, if it grates on me, I realize somebody could have asked a better question. So in my head, I reframe their question, how it could be most positively used, how it can be used to identify the real answer they want. So that way, when I get involved in conversations with myself or other people, good questions, empowering questions just flow. It's a muscle that we have to practice. So those are just a few of the things that I do. Again, you don't have to do those. I'm not suggesting you should do those, but I think those or some other combination of things that you do as a ritual every day to stay on track is actually critical to your success. Okay, let's just do a recap of everything we've learned, all right? Like, you guys have been so great. I really appreciate your time. So number one, we have the prescription for clean thoughts. That's going to help us make sure that when we get into a struggle, we can get out of it. Number two, the experience of reality. What is it? It is what it is. You've got to find what that is for you. And then you can have your single point of focus. You can pick your goal once you're clear, and then you reverse engineer and chunk out as necessary the steps to get what you want. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, there's lots of little nuances, but go back, read these again. Or, if you want, I know we went through a lot of this fast, and I've tried to give you a ton of info. If you want more help or clarity, I'm actually happy to jump on a call with you for a free strategy session. All you have to do is either email me or connect via the link attached to this presentation, and I'll spend some time with you seeing how we can best serve you at a higher level. Again, this session is free, but keep in mind my calendar fills up fast, so click the link below, contact me to reserve your spot now. Thank you guys so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you achieving your highest and best visions.